And on our right, an automated steam-powered ore bucket lift. The automation is amazing. It comes up, trips, goes up, dumps on the ore pile, and returns and goes back down into the shaft, and all the guys do is just stand there and watch it.
Well, it took me some growing and a fair bit of schooling, a little bit of trouble to get on the move, and I felt like a loser. But
okay, what happens to that ore once it's dug out of the ground? Well, it's dumped into a pile for us tourists, washed down a riffle board, and then we had a chance to pan the gold out of it. I get a fair amount, probably enough to fill a vial the size of my little finger. Donna has a pair of earrings that's filled with it. I've got a vial with a lot of the gold dust left in it as well. The riffles catch the heavy material going down and hold it, while the lighter stuff flows out and off to the end. Here we have the Alaska pipeline running from the North Bay to Valdez. This is, of course, is just one short section of it.
We sleep near the sound of the slow-running river and wake up most mornings to a drizzling rain.
And on in Denali National Park, 6 million acres, and home to Mount McKinley, the highest point in North America. Here we have some caribou. Difference between caribou and reindeer: caribou are wild, reindeer are domesticated, and have a little bit different body structure due to being domesticated and better feed. Something's out there in the brush. Is it caribou? Wandering around, let's see what it is. Let's try a close-up. Oh, a grizzly bear, looking for berries to fatten up for the winter. Grizzly bears are omnivores. They'll eat about anything that don't eat them first. Carrion, berries, you name it. And no, they are not all the same color. I saw grizzly bears that were blonde as Marilyn Monroe and black as, well, we won't go there. Here's a caribou running down the river. Probably the flies are bothering it. It's trying to get away from them and get some water up. Mount McKinley, 20,320 feet high, tallest peak in North America. We were lucky we hit there with a day where there were no clouds in the sky. According to our guide, this was very, very unusual. In fact, he said it was the first time that he'd been guiding RV trips that he had seen it this clear. The Mantasca Valley Colony Experiment was part of FDR's New Deal program. In 1935, 200 families were offered the chance to move from Minnesota, Michigan, and Wisconsin to Alaska. They were given 40 acres and the materials to build a home and a barn. The houses and barns were cookie cutter style, so they all looked the same. They were also provided with horses and cows. By 1940, half had given up and returned to the U.S. In 1965, there were only 20 families left of the original 200. Living in Alaska is not easy nor for everyone, even those accustomed to cold weather. And here we have a yak farm. Yaks are indigenous to Asia, but they were brought to Alaska as an agricultural trial. And we also have moose. We found this one out grazing in a wetland area. And wake up most mornings to a drizzling rain, and we live every day like the first. Were the mosquitoes big? Well, this one loads big enough to stuff and put on display, so I'll let you decide for yourself. Waterfalls everywhere. We must have seen well over 1,000 waterfalls, each one more spectacular than the previous. We're now in Homer, Alaska, down on the coast. Glaciers there running into the ocean and coming down valleys. There's many glaciers still left in Alaska. You can see how they flow down the valleys, and then at the leading edge melts off, and the water runs down streams, over waterfalls, rivers, and into the ocean. Yes, and even more waterfalls. And more waterfalls. Every place you look, there was either a waterfall or a lake. Every bend in the road was a new experience. And here, one from our tour boat that we were going out to see a big glacier. And yeah, it just was a bit foggy out there. As you can see, I hope everybody's got their radar on so we don't get run over. Another beautiful waterfall from the ocean tour boat. And icebergs. Millions and millions of icebergs floating around. Some small, some much larger. And as you can see, they all still have, many of them have that distinctive blue coloration to them. And it was as bright blue as it looks in the video. Unbelievable. If we keep our eyes open, we might see some sea otters and some seal out here. Yep, there's a sea otter. A couple of sea otters just laying back, having a ball in this ice-cold water. They must have either a good tolerance for cold or a lot of insulation, one of the two. If they were just bouncing around, riding the waves. I could watch these guys for hours. They're probably one of the cutest marine animals there is. Yep, we're doing the backstroke. And here's another glacier. I kept waiting for a piece to break off, but unfortunately it didn't happen while we were there. And again, the vivid blue color is very apparent. I think we might find Old Man Winter over there if we keep looking real close. Yep, there he is. Eyes, nose, mouth, just sort of looking off to your right. And seals, harbor seals. The seals stay on the ice to avoid becoming lunch for the orca or killer whales. However, the sea otters just float along and don't seem to be concerned about them. I have no idea why. Maybe orcas consider seals tasting better than sea otters. Who knows? But occasionally these seals do have to get in the water and do some fishing. I think this guy's going to take a dive here in a minute. Nope. Okay, another glacier. These glacier ice are thousands of feet thick. And yes, it did rain, but it was fine as long as we were prepared for it. Another beautiful lake. And yes, we did get a little dirty because some of the roads were gravel and muddy. This is Skagway. The cruise ships come in here. They come up the inner passage from Seattle and Vancouver. This is where they dock, and then the tourists offload into Skagway, and many of them take the White Pass and the Yukon train up as we did, although we didn't get off a cruise ship. The miners during the gold rush had to offload from the steamers docking in Skagway and then hike up this canyon and across country to get to the Yukon where the gold was. This railroad was built in 1884, I believe. Unfortunately, the gold rush petered out just after that. Now we're headed into the tunnel. The railroad was rerouted a little bit and through this tunnel rather than going across a very long and high viaduct. We'll see that later, and we'll see why they decided to use the tunnel instead of going through the viaduct. If we look down in the bottom, we can see the trail that the miners used. We'll get some more views of it later on. There it is. Miners had to have a ton of supplies, 2,000 pounds of supplies, before the Canadian authorities would let them in from the Alaska Territory. Too many of them came with too few supplies and ended up starving to death during the winter. There's the Tressler Viaduct that the train used to go across. I think I'm sort of happy that we detoured through the tunnel. It looks a little bit shaky. Okay, we're headed back down the pass now, going back to Skagway. The railroad just goes up to the top and then turns around and comes back down. It is used strictly for tourist purposes now. It has no freight hauling capabilities. Some people come about halfway up, get off, and then hike on trails, and the train stops and picks them back up and then takes them back down to Skagway. And yet another glacier. An interesting feature on the left-hand side. We'll zoom in on it. It looks like it might be an ice cave. Now, who knows what might be down there? We didn't have a chance to go look. But it's definitely a cave that goes back. And salmon, yeah, the salmon were running and spawning. And where there's salmon, there's probably a hungry bear. So let's keep our eyes open and not let him sneak up behind us. Salmon, salmon, and more salmon. And all of them about 18 inches, 2 feet. Some maybe even larger. Whoop, there's our bear. I knew there one had to be out here. And the seagulls picking up the remnants. This bear has a very strange fishing habit. I'm not sure that he's really hungry. He's just sort of walking around out in the water, scaring the fish. We can see him trying to escape as they go. They see him coming, and with a flurry of fins, they go. Now he's found a lunch. Remember, bears will eat almost anything that don't eat them first. So he's found a dead salmon. Salmon, of course, after they spawn, die. So he's found a dead salmon, and he's eating the head and the skin. That's the only part they eat. Apparently that's got the most fat in it to fatten them up for their winter diet. And he finished that one off, and now he's just out harassing the fish again. He almost had one, and then he just let it go. I don't think he's very hungry. It's a fish know enough to get out of his way.
The lowest branch was 10 feet up. I had to jump and trust my luck. The lowest branch was 10 feet up.
Almost looks like he's looking for one that has his name on it. The other one's reserved for other bears.
And so I jumped into the air. But I missed that branch on the way up there. And so I jumped
No, don't think he's hungry. He's just making life miserable for the salmon.
branch on the way up there. Now don't you fret. And
There's
don't you
another dead
frown.
salmon laying there, but he doesn't seem to be a bit interested in it.
Now don't you fret and don't you frown, 'cause I caught that branch on the
This
way
pretty much
up
ends our Alaska video. Next we go to Vancouver and the beautiful overlook over Vancouver Bay.
Stephanie says that she wants to know why she's given half her life to people she hates now.
And we found some raccoons up on the overlook. I think they were pretty tame. They're just looking for a handout. But they are cute little guys.
What country shall I say is calling from across the world? But
And here's some more. And Vancouver has some beautiful gardens. In fact, most cities in Canada have beautiful gardens. They seem to be a lot more flower oriented than we are. And we finish up with a windsurfer out over the Bay of Vancouver, floating along, not a care in the world, letting the wind drag him across the ocean. And with this, our Alaskan Odyssey comes to an end.
that she wants to know
Hope you enjoyed it.
why it is
And we'll see you on our next adventure.
she can't